It's the Vinyl Vibe podcast with your hosts, Jamie Bosenko and Marte Eldridge.
That's right. Join us as we grow our record collections and explore music from multiple decades and genres.
This season, we'll be listening to noteworthy albums that one of us or neither of us have ever heard, and we'll decide, are we going to turn it or are we going to burn it?
Let's do this.
Go. Hey, Marte.
Hey, man.
How you doing?
I'm doing great.
Episode 2.
Yeah, we've come a long way, right?
So far.
So far, so many episodes. Jeez, this is exciting.
No, but seriously, I was driving up here and I was like, man, this is so much fun. I love getting to do this.
Same here.
Yeah.
Same here.
It's a nice break, but it's also feels, I don't know, it feels so important.
Yeah, it does. My wife is living vicariously through us.
Is
she
she?
is so pumped about this.
Oh,
podcast.
that's exciting. I finally told my wife.
How did that go?
She was like, okay.
Sometimes we overthink
was,
it, man.
Yeah, I know,
We
which was
overthink
the
it.
best thing that could have happened.
Absolutely.
No, but I love doing this. I love talking about music with you. And so let's get into it.
Yeah, for sure.
Like we start every episode, we're going to hear from producer David, who is not mic'd, so he's going to yell a hot take. It may come off angry, but he's not.
He's not angry.
He's
Trust
not
us.
angry.
Hey, is Nirvana really that great?
Oh, whoa! That is
Okay,
a hot
so in
take.
case you heard,
That's a hot take.
in case you didn't hear the question, producer David asked, is Nirvana really that great?
Jamie, I'm gonna lean on you for this one, for a couple of things.
Okay.
How many albums can you remember that they actually have?
This is going to be bad. Here's the thing I think our tens of listeners need to understand is that we're not music experts.
That is true.
And part of the fun of this is exploring music that we're not that familiar with.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to come off like idiots.
Full disclosure.
Full disclosure. This is not the podcast for, oh, here are some guys who really know about this band and know all the details. We're going to quickly look at some stuff because we're on a journey. We're learning about these groups, these bands, these artists.
Right.
And so we're informing ourselves. But when we come to these mics, it's like, I don't remember those details I just read. No, I mean, I wrote a few down. But
Right. Yeah.
anyway, so Nirvana kind of fits that for me. I was not a Nirvana fan, which is kind of strange because like so many of the grunge bands in the 90s, so this is when I was growing up, I was 100% in for. But for some reason, except for like Smells Like Teen Spirit, which was their big single, you would hear it, you would know it.
Yeah.
It's just one of those songs that's just part of American culture pretty much. I don't know what it is. And every now and then I go back to them and I'm like, now, do I like them now?
Mm-hmm.
Because that does happen. I'll test some bands, some artists that I didn't like before. And it's like, for whatever reason, like, I like this.
Yeah.
I like this now. It just hasn't hit with Nirvana, so it's so strange. So I don't know if I can really answer that question because I feel like it's such a personal taste of mine that just hasn't clicked. But I would say culturally, Nirvana did so much for the music scene, for a whole large group of young angsty teenagers who gravitate. I'm joking, but I mean, like
No.
a lot of people. And musically, such a giant influence. I mean, like, good hooks, decent guitar playing, like, some people could call them overrated, but I think if you look at their influence, I mean, like, some of the artists we're going to talk about today, you could call them overrated if you just, I mean, what are we basing this off of, right? It's like music's kind of, it's a little untangible. It's obviously untangible. It's music, but it's hard to pin down what it is that moves you about an artist.
Yeah. I'm more like, is it timeless? Like, do they are people still listening to it? Is it something that is easy on the ears, if you will? Something that my 4-year-old kid in 10 years, would he be listening to it? There's some music that crosses over generations.
Oh, yeah.
And many people listening to it.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say, I feel more more of an affinity towards the hip hop community, and in the hip hop community, there's a lot of respect that gets paid towards Nirvana in a lot of ways.
Really?
Yeah. People respect just the groundwork that they laid, just as a band, as a group. A lot of their music gets sampled in hip hop.
No way.
And
That's cool.
yeah, I mean, it's so. To me, I think this is a great question, producer Dave. I don't know if you did this on purpose, but there's a suite about Run-DMC, like how they bridged a culture of two different genres.
Yeah,
And
I'm
that was
excited to
kind of
get into that. Mhm.
Their point, and I think Nirvana sort of did that in some sort of way or another, whether they did that on purpose or on accident. They were sort of a bridge to two cultures.
Whoa.
Because I think a lot of people in the 90s probably saw themselves in Nirvana, which is great. So anyway,
I can see that. You know, it really has lasted generations.
What's that?
Their T-shirts. I see people.
I see those T-shirts
I
everywhere.
see those T-shirts. I see them on babies.
I do.
Those babies aren't listening to Nirvana.
It's the Nirvana smiley face.
Yeah.
Yeah. I see that. The organization we work for, we've seen kind of a ripoff on that.
Oh, really? I haven't seen that.
There's a
That's so funny.
there's a shirt.
How do you feel about, this is another hot take, and we don't have time. Maybe another hot take later will be, how do you feel about people who wear the T-shirts of bands but don't even know the band?
I think it's silly. I think it's silly.
How could we not think it's a little silly?
It's a little silly.
It's a little silly.
Yeah.
There was this sweet barista at this coffee shop, and she had a U2 shirt on, Joshua Tree, like their big album.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I love that album. She's like, I've never heard them. And I was like, you know. Sorry, it was a little dramatic.
No, you might have done that internally. That's fine.
I probably did it physically. I probably turned around and walked out. No, I didn't.
Is it the coffee? No, it's your poor taste.
I just,
in music. Sorry.
no, her coffee was great still. I was like, well, you should probably listen to them, you know, if you're going to wear the t-shirt, maybe. I don't know.
That's great. That's awesome.
Okay, well, moving on. Great hot take. As always, producer Dave. Today, album. What's the album for today, Marte?
Our album for today is brought to you by Run-DMC, Raising Hell.
Can we see this in the shot?
Yeah,
Some of this is being videoed.
It's great. I love the artwork on that. I love the filter. I think it's great. I think it's a great picture. It shows
Kind of hard to see.
it is hard to see, but I think it does like sort of pay some sort of tribute of like, coming out of the
my little Obi strip was blocking. Sorry, this is a better shot.
which those letters match the pressing, which
Yes,
I think is really
I have
great.
this pressing from Vinyl Me Please. It's not too expensive, so if you're a guy like me who likes the fancy smancy color vinyl, you can pick one up pretty easily. Here's the back
Oh, that's
of
awesome.
the thing. I like the back actually better because it's just brighter, and it's got all three of them.
All three of them.
Yeah. Which is kind of a miss, I think, for the cover.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. Well, yeah, I enjoyed the album. I'll be honest. Be very honest.
Come on.
As a hip hop fanatic, if you will, listen to it, and it is hard to listen to. It is.
Wow, just coming right out with a strong opinion.
It's just a strong opinion. It's hard to listen to. Nonetheless, if I can go back in time and just sort of place myself in the time, and listen to it from that perspective. There are like lyrically, it's great. The beats I feel like are revolutionary. The hooks are catchy, like really catchy. Cadences are great, and I can see why in that time it was such a big deal because it was refreshing. It was something different. It was something unheard of. But I don't know if you know this, when they went on tour, that tour actually contained some like up and coming folks that were going to kind of run into the 90s and really dominate the 90s in terms of hip hop.
Yeah.
The Beastie Boys, LL Cool J.
Mhm.
They were all on tour with Run DMC all at the same time.
Didn't Onyx go on tour, or was that later?
I think that was
Was
later.
that a later one? Okay.
But he also associated with Run DMC.
Mhm.
And a lot of people give Run DMC sort of that credit of like Run DMC walked so that other folks could run, and they did so many things that was against the grain, against the culture. I mean, they spoke for a lot of like they helped advance like fashion and culture,
Yeah.
making it okay to lyrically like put, you know, influence like a beat, you know, and put your emotions and things like that on a track. And then the track that most people probably know off of this album, Walk This Way, was also revolutionizing. Like our last episode, we talked about, Bayou Country, and how, you know, Credence, CCR was like they were paying homage to the black culture with how they would cover music or write music for others. This, to me, was one of the first times where you see two cultures sort of colliding on the same track and being a monster hit.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it was,
And it still
It
hits.
still is.
It still hits.
it still is.
You know, and I was thinking, when I was thinking, listening to this song, I was like, this is such an amazing. Now, granted, it is an Aerosmith song that the producer Rick Rubens was like, "Hey, what if we do this song?" And did you get to watch the
I watched
series?
I watched a little bit of it. I thought just a funny deal.
Okay.
Run DMC was like they were like, yeah, of course, because they would like sample that. They were just rapping over
Yeah.
Aerosmith song. Like,
Right. Well, that's what they thought he meant. They were like, okay, yeah, we'll take that riff and we'll just drop it into the song. They said, no, I want to do the song. So it wasn't a proper like their song necessarily,
Sure.
but it is such a like. They showed clips of the music. The music video is so great, and it is like them. Like there's a physical wall between the hip hop, music side, them rapping, and Aerosmith. And eventually the wall gets broken down. Okay, it's so poetic.
And it's exactly.
Yeah, and then they come
So much
together,
symbolism.
and but it hits, and it's like, I don't know. It's almost like you want to say this song was the beginning of a kind of genre, but I think it's still the best song of a kind of genre. It's like it peaked at the very beginning.
But it was still great. There's so many songs on this album that I look at and go, oh wow, like I understand why that had to be there.
Right.
My Adidas was one of my favorite ones. There are songs on the album that I'm like, oh, people are doing that now. It's much more cleaner, but kind of the sort of call and response, like I say a lyric, then you say a lyric, I say a lyric, then you say a lyric, kind of that
like
back and
what's
forth.
the one of the best ones?
Peter
Piper, yeah,
yes.
right at the start.
Yeah.
When they're like not even finished, they're finishing each other's sentences or
Yes.
words even.
Yeah.
They're going back and forth. That's a lot of fun.
It takes a lot of like practice, chemistry, talent to even do something like that. That is, to me, that was one of the things that I enjoyed about just their chemistry on records. It was a great record all around. I would say it's hard to listen to, but hard to listen to because music has come a long way and sound is just
it's stuck in its time.
It is.
It's a product of its time.
It is.
Yeah. And that's what when you suggested this one, and I was completely on board, and I remember thinking initially, it's like, this will be a great place to start, but my there's so many hits on this album. It's tricky. My Adidas, of course, Walk This Way. Even Peter Piper, I think people know. And so it's like, just even my memory of those was like, it's like, do, and
Very
so,
robotic, sort of.
It is. Yeah. And hip hop has gotten a lot more kind of
flowy,
fluid and stuff. And in that way, it's kind of more interesting, not as locked in, right? But like you said, it's this album was so big. Like, what are some of the stats? Did you look up? I know it went double platinum.
No, this album went triple platinum.
It went triple.
It was the first. So it was the first hip hop album to go triple platinum. It peaked at number 3 on the Billboard Top 100, but it was a number 1 album with hip hop and R&B.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I mean, obviously,
it's their third album.
It was their third, yeah.
Right.
And they were putting albums out, kind of like CCR. Like they were putting out albums just for the heck of it. Nowadays it's much more. There's a lot more politics in how albums, roll out. With back in the day, you just like if you felt it, you put it out. And so they had put out albums in like sequential years. So this was their third album in as many years, and this came out in '86. So.
Okay, that's awesome. Like you were saying, things I loved about this album, just piggybacking off of some comments you've already made, how it does cross some genres, because it wasn't just that Aerosmith song. It wasn't just like Rick Rubin's going, let's. It wasn't just his idea, because you go back off of their first album, probably one of my favorite run, because I did a little bit of listening to their whole discography, and on that first album they have a song called Rock Box. I think it's like the first track. And it's electric guitar with the rock and roll beat. And on that documentary series, I think it's on Peacock, you should go check it out. It's called King from Queens.
Yes, yeah.
King from Queens. They talk about how hip hop at the time had a different beat. It was faster. It was almost like disco-y maybe. And they really went back to, and this is one of the ways that the group's revolutionary, because they wanted a harder hitting beat. And so who had that? Rock and roll had it. That boom, 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 chop, a boom, boom, chop. And you hear it. And so they're pulling that right from rock and roll and just incorporating like some guitars. It's not every track, but they'll mix it in there. Yeah. So they're crossing genres from the very beginning. Or can you cross a genre if the other genre is not made? I don't know how to describe it. Sure,
but they were introducing something that was not heard. Like like you said, it was more funk and real quick and fast paced.
Right.
Whereas this was just so you could say that still.
Even like Grandmaster Flash and some of those guys had never done a full hip hop album with just rapping over the whole album. Run-DMC, that first album was the first full album.
Right.
All they're doing is rapping, over beats. But yeah, they're incorporating rock and roll the whole time. And even on this album, I think Rick Rubens plays like almost like this heavy metal guitar, like on the B side. I forget which track it is, but I heard that and I was like,
was it?
Wow, we're getting into like some death metal almost, I mean, it's like, it was heavily distorted, but it was interesting.
It was very interesting.
Yeah.
It was very interesting. One of the things about this album, so they went on tour, and so one of the things that they did really well was people enjoyed them live. So when they were live on stage, it was an incredible show, but it also brought some problems as well. And so they played at Madison Square Gardens, which they both attribute as or the three of them attribute as one of the biggest deals in their entire career, because they're all from New York, grew up in Queens. Madison Square Garden being the mecca of entertainment, like that was the place. And so they performed at Madison Square Garden. But one of the things that culturally started to pick up is when they would start playing, or when they would play, fights would break out.
Yeah.
In the audience.
Right.
And so this was just to your point, this was a new sound. It was, a new group of kids. Like they weren't necessarily rapping about crazy things. Nowadays you listen to hip hop, and hip hop's just got all kinds of just, guns and drugs and all. They weren't
for the most part, they were talking about peace and reading and
they were, just their, they would talk about their clothes, or they would talk about how good they are at rapping, like those kinds of things. But there was something about their music that would incite, I don't know, like fighting, violence, whatever the case may be. And so the culture kind of took this as, well, that's not good. The people are fighting and breaking out into riots and so on and so forth. Remember, this is the 80s, the late 80s, and at the time there wasn't as much of a hip hop scene, at least mainstream wise, on the West Coast. That really doesn't take place into the early 90s, into the mid 90s. But they were headed to LA to play a show in LA, play the same, tour kind of deal. And word gets out that that they're inciting riots with their lyrics and things like that, which caught them by surprise. Cause we don't even rap about crazy things. Like we rap about. They kind of highlighted one of the lyrics about I don't do dope. It's something like I don't do dope. I read books or something like that. That's kind of what they're pointing to.
Right.
It's like we don't incite these things, so we don't understand why. Well, they get all the way there, and of course, gangs are a big deal in LA. And there was a moment where there was just a fear that something could happen that shouldn't happen. And they ended up not being able to play in LA, not playing that show. And the group kind of started to feel a little bit of a rift just amongst themselves. Like they started to feel kind of some distance. Run, who many people kind of attribute as like the big deal guy, like he's the guy that most people know. Like
he was
Run,
the loudest.
He's the loudest.
Yeah.
He's the rah-rah. And it's one of those deals where even listening to the album, Run is lyrically gifted, but he feels more like the hype man.
Yeah.
And D is more of like D-Mac kind of feels like the guy that brings the lyrics. You know what I mean? He feels like the guy that I don't know. Not out of a place. Run-DMC, if you ever listen to this, I'm not being disrespectful.
I'm sure they're listening.
But he kind of felt like the talent of the group. And the talent isn't always the one that gets all of the glitz and glamour. Like
some people may not know that where's the name come from. It's their DJ names. It's Run
names,
and
yeah.
DMC. Those are his initials, I think, of his name. So
Daryl something. I should know this,
yeah,
but
DMC. And then there was Jam Master Jay was their DJ. I didn't know. This was a really interesting thing for me. They all considered, even the community considered, the heart of the group.
Yeah.
He never talks, I don't think, on any
a whole
record.
lot. No, he doesn't talk a lot.
On the records, he's spinning the vinyl and scratching and all that kind of stuff and mixing the tracks. But they all considered him like he was the one who brought the style. There's this great clip on the special where it's like he just walks out of they come to pick him up and he just walks out dressed like that, like the DMC look, and they all just look at each other like, that's it.
Well, there's some rift caused in this group, and I think that this LA show was one of the that was the beginning of the rift happening. There was like money stuff and all kinds of issues that kind of went into that, but regardless of, culturally, like this laid the groundwork for people to really see themselves in them. Like, oh, I could do that. I could be that. They introduced, like, even like to your point, the way that they dress, like even that was iconic. It was, the hat with the jumpsuit and the Adidas. Like people replicated that and did that. You know, and
I love the Adidas thing. And of course, my Adidas is a track on here, and I didn't know that was just pure. And of course, this makes sense, but this was just pure like, we just like Adidas, so we're going to rap about Adidas. And then Adidas comes in on the back end and is like,
hey, sales are skyrocketing.
Hey, we'll pay you. I mean, like one of their producers like did a deal with them, but they did this monster deal with Adidas
at the time. Yeah,
at the time, which was like this legendary deal that hadn't really been done. And you almost think, looking back, that it was some sort of product placement. Yeah. And eventually, they're wearing Adidas, and it's like their tour bus has like Adidas. Eventually it does become product placement, but they were doing it already. They were already all wearing Adidas stuff.
But one of the things I thought was unique about that, we have to give them a whole lot of credit, because once again, this is an Black American at that group. Adidas is this very German, overseas European group.
Yeah.
And they made the call, to say, this isn't Nike, this isn't Converse, this isn't...
Adidas were not big at the time.
No, and they called over, they recognized they were upping the shoe sales. People wanted to be like them, dress like them, do what they did, and that led to more opportunities. And I think that's even something that once again, it's one of those timeless things. Like
Yeah.
culturally, people look at them
Yeah.
and go, "Yeah, those are the guys."
Yeah.
I even like this last piece. Like I like the story of how my Adidas became a thing. They were on their way to a show. I don't remember which show it was, but they were walking in, and the security guard looks at him and looks at one of the guys. I think it may have been Run. And says, "What are you wearing?" And he just yells, "My data," and that became the song. Like that's
Yeah,
kind of
yeah, yeah.
how
Yeah.
that and
With no shoelaces.
with no yeah.
Yeah.
And so people, those shell toe Adidas,
Mm-hmm.
they even talk about the different
I kinda
colors.
want
Like,
some
I like
now.
yeah, like black and white. You want to keep it classic, or if you want to get crazy, you
Yeah.
know, get the blue and yellows. You know what I mean?
They play in all. You can be classy. You can
Yeah,
be crazy
exactly,
in Adidas. They play everywhere.
Yeah.
It's amazing. It's the perfect shoe.
So yeah.
Quick. One more thought, maybe. I love that Rick. I did not know that Rick Rubens produces. I did not know
I didn't know
that Rick Rubens
I thought he just did this.
got his start in hip hop.
Didn't I thought he just did this elite all white party once a year, and
Oh my
lot of
god! And
rich people show up.
so I just did a quick Google Rick Rubens because you see him everywhere now.
Uh-huh.
You know, old, long white beard, long white hair. He's mostly interviewing and talking about rock and roll, which he eventually did get into. But he got his start completely. Co-founder of Def Jam Records.
That's not a thing.
That is
really
a thing.
That's crazy.
That's
crazy.
You look at this guy, and even the show, it's worth watching the show just for this part because they bring him in this album, and everyone's like, because he had produced something else, I forget. He had already produced some hip hop.
Mhm.
And they walk in the room, they're like, "Where's the guy who cut that record?" And he's like, "He's right there." That's Rick Rubens.
no.
No. The guy who produced that other record. No, that's him. It's just this nerdy. He already had the beard and the long hair. And you just look at but it's
awesome.
beautiful,
Yeah.
you know. It's just
Yeah, there's
kinda-
something great about it.
It's something great about it.
Crossing cultures everywhere.
I know,
It was
I know.
just great.
So please go check out this album. But we need to decide after really digging in, are we gonna turn it or are we gonna burn it? Marte.
Well, I love the album. I love everything that they did for the culture. But I'm gonna have to burn it. I don't think, surprisingly,
Our first burn.
Yeah,
Episode 2.
I know it's. I'm paying respect to the album. Album is great within its time, but if I'm like, do I want to put this on and just relax? I just can't. There was a moment this morning. It was playing because I had been listening to it, and in my car I had the music up loud for some reason. I was putting my son in, and you know how your phone like switches over to Bluetooth and all the things, and then automatically. So my phone switched over to Bluetooth, and it's like blasting. I think Peter Piper, and I was like, "This is kind of embarrassing. I don't like turn this off. This sounds terrible. Like it didn't sound terrible. You know what I mean? But it's like this sounds weird that I'm."
Oh my god.
My son's like in the back, kind of like, ah! And I'm like, it was a disaster. It was a disaster. But
Oh my god.
and I respect the culture, respect the album, respect the music.
Yeah.
But I'd have to. I don't know if I would play it again. You know,
Okay. There it is. Burn. One burn.
one burn.
What am I going to do? I'm still, I knew there was going to be an off the cuff decision for me because I'm with you 100%. Like very dated. Like, in fact, I'm doing a DJ show on Saturday. This is funny. It's for a mutual friend. And he was like, hey, I want you to do jazz at my coffee roastery thing.
Right.
Do it for a couple hours.
Right.
And then like the last minute, he's like, and some hip hop. I'm like, what? I was like, are you sure? I text him back. I was like confused. I was like, what? You want me to do? Yeah, my kids want some hip hop. And so it's like, would I throw some, like, are they going to want to hear Run-DMC?
not.
Probably not,
not.
you know?
No.
And am I going to want to hear, I think I'm going to have to burn it.
Yeah.
For those reasons, I'm going to have to burn it. And just because I have this vinyl record doesn't mean I can't turn around and sell. Last time we went out after the show, I went out and sold one of the records we talked about, and for different reasons. But
Right.
you know,
Sure.
I buy and sell these a lot.
It's timeless, but it's
I may
kinda
keep
hard
it, I
to-
may not, but
Yeah.
for the purposes of this show and what we mean by that, you know, it's like I haven't learned to like it yet sometimes.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's one I'm just gonna put on and listen to.
Yeah.
So that's it. But next week we're almost out of time. Next week, what are we gonna listen to?
I'm excited about some Bob Dylan.
Bob Dylan,
Yeah.
Highway 61 Revisited. So if you want to listen along with us, check it out this week and tune in next week to hear if we're going to turn it, if we're going to burn it.
Yep.
Hey, keep on chugling, Marte.
Keep on chugling. We're out. See y'all later.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Vinyl Vibe Podcast. To keep up with which album we're listening to, you can find us on Instagram at the.vinyl.vibe, or you can check us out on our website at thevinylvibe.info. There you can click the drop down and select podcast and find info about your hosts or producer Dave, and find past episodes.
Also on our website, you'll find a link to our YouTube channel where you can watch videos of our conversation. And please like, subscribe, and leave a review wherever you get your podcast.
We want to thank Jasper Redding for producing our theme song, David Hernandez for producing this episode, and we hope all of you will tune in next week when we'll have another album to turn
Or to burn. Peace out.
See you guys.